For the next hour, we will be exploring the AZ Merit Exam. You will hear all about test taking tips for that exam. Right now, if you have not already done so, please take out a pen or a pencil, and I will give you a couple of seconds to do this. Teachers, if you haven't already, please pass out the guided notes for the test taking tips. Students, please put your name on this worksheet and fill in the blanks as we go through this presentation. Teachers, feel free to pause the presentation at any time to give students extra time to fill in the blanks. I know I am going to be giving my students credit for filling out this worksheet and bringing it back to our class. So make sure you all fill it out, and you can pause and ask your teachers any questions that you might have. So let's look at slide number 2. The directions say, write 2 sentences in which you describe the feelings you have while taking a test. I'll give you 1 minute on a timer to write out those 2 sentences. Be very specific and be prepared to share later. Okay, your 1 minute timer starts now. About 10 more seconds. Okay, time's up. Students, on your guided notes, we're going to go in to slide 3, 'twas the night before testing, and go ahead and fill out the blanks so you can have this as a study guide for later. Okay, 'twas the night before testing, and all through the house, the teenagers were up all hours of the night on their phones, and they were Insta-snapping. Just kidding. But in all seriousness, please make sure that if you are taking a test the next day, the night before, you get some rest. Make sure you go to bed at a reasonable time and avoid late night cramming. So, if you normally go to bed at midnight, please go to bed at 11, just a little bit before, so you're not tired and groggy when you wake up on a testing day. Now, let's take a look of your morning routine, the morning of the testing, slide 4. You want to wake up with enough time so you don't have to rush. I remember when I was in college, I had a final exam and my alarm didn't go off. This is a true story. Panic-stricken, I ran across the campus in my jammies and slippers, so stressed out. And I ended up getting a really bad grade on that test, which brought my grade down in that class. So the moral of the story, set your alarm. Also, eat a good breakfast, even if you don't think you need to. Remember, you're coming to school to do well on this test. And not only to get a good grade, but to show pride in our school. And part of that mindset is for you to have a positive attitude. So think positive. Let's look at slide 15. Attitude is everything. Okay, students, you see the letters of attitude on the screen right here. So we are going to assign them the placement that they are in the alphabet. So A is the first letter of the alphabet, it gets a 1. B is the second letter of the alphabet, it gets a 2. You get the idea. Okay, so A gets a 1. T is the 20th letter of the alphabet. And what I want you to do is start adding. So 20 plus 1 is good. Plus another 20 is, and I is the 9th letter in the alphabet. We're back to T. And I hope you figured out that U is number 21. Good. D gets a 4 and E gets a 5. And what does that add up to? Drum roll, please. 100. I'm sure you've all heard something called growth mindset. And growth mindset is really just this. Your attitude is everything. It's 100% of who you are. If you think positive and know that you can do well on this test and anything in your life, that's half the battle. Okay, let's move on to slide 6. We're going to get into multiple choice questions. Carefully read directions in order to understand what you are being asked. Second, read the question and all answer choices before marking anything. Third, read all answer choices before choosing your answer. And finally, here's a trick you might not know about. Read answer choices backwards, starting with D. You do this because you want to force yourself to read all the choices. So let's say you have a question on a test and you think easy peasy, I've got this, the answer is A, so you mark A. But you didn't read choice B, C, D, E, F, because you wanted to rush through the test and just get it done. The problem is, although A was a good choice, D was the best choice. And you think you got it correct, but you didn't. So make sure you read all the answers, and by reading them backwards, you're going to slow down a lot more. Okay, turn the page, and we're moving on in your notes to slide 7, more multiple choice questions. You want to try answering the question before you even try to read the answer choices. Then read the answers and choose the best answer choice that is closest to the one that you thought of. How great will you feel if you are on the AZ Merit reading test? Or better yet, the math test. You look at a problem and you work it out on paper. Then you look at the answer choices D, C, B, and you realize the same answer that you came up with is there. So go ahead, try that as a technique. Moving on to the next slide. When you are taking a multiple choice test, start by answering the questions you can right away. Save the questions that you don't know the answer to until the end of the test. Give yourself a break and don't stress about the problems that may be frustrating you until the end. Now, the AZ Merit test is not a time test. You have the until the end of the school day to finish it. So make sure when you are using this strategy and you're skipping around all of these questions, you use the Mark for Review tool. We're going to take a look at what that looks like on the next screenshot. I'll show you an example. After you are done the AZ Merit, you will get a screen that looks like this. Congratulations, you've reached the end of the test. If you need to review your answers, select the question number you wish to review. A flag icon appears for any question that you marked for review. So if you're looking at this right now, I know it might be difficult to see, but problem 6, there's a little flag and it has a check mark underneath it. That student had a problem with question 6. They couldn't get the answer. They're like, I'm getting frustrated. I'm going to come back to this later. So there's a tool that you can click, Mark for Review. Now, you can also unmark that once you have reviewed it. So if you see that student might have also marked for review question 12, but they unchecked that box, and so that symbol isn't there anymore. Now, what's the deal with questions 14, 22, and 26? There's no answer at all. So you have the option, which you need to do, to go back to those questions and select an answer. Okay, let's get back to your notes. We're moving on to slide 10. Once you've marked your answers and you go back for review, don't change your answer unless you are very uncertain about your first choice. Your gut is usually correct, so trust it. Answer every question and make the most intelligent guess you can. Many times the directions will say, choose the best answer. So there's going to be answers that are similar to each other, but you are smart, so make the most intelligent one you can. Okay, slide 11. On the AZ Merit, there will be several multi-part questions. The most important part of that is to read the directions. If there is a part A, there is going to be a part B. Don't you hate it when you're in a conversation with someone and they say, first of all, but there's no second of all? Usually there is a second of all. So on this test, you will have multi-part questions. And in the directions, it's important to read because you could have to select more than one answer. There's many questions that say, check all the correct answers or select 2 details from the text. Okay, so read those directions. All right, let's go on to slide 12, multiple choice questions. And this is the last one before we get into some general strategies. There is a process that we use called elimination. You're going to use the process of elimination for questions you are unsure about. Now, the symbol below that says A, B, C with a line through it is called a strike through. You have that tool to use as you're going through the answer choices. So you have a question. You read the question. Then you start reading the answer choices. So you read answer D, and that sounds like it could be the correct answer. You read answer C, and that also sounds like it could be the correct answer. Then you get to answer B, and you're thinking, no way, that's not it. This is where you use the strike through tool to eliminate B. okay? You want to be able to focus on what you think is correct. So make sure you use that strike through tool on the multiple choice answers that you want to eliminate. On your notes, the third bullet point under slide 12 says, draw what the strike through tool looks like. I'll give you a couple of seconds. It should be really fast. Go ahead and do that now. Okay, we're going to move on to slide 13 with some general test taking strategies. Once you're done with the exam, make sure you go back and review your answers. You want to mark questions or answers you were unsure about with that mark for review tool that I told you about earlier. Now, sometimes, this is rare, but sometimes you might find the answer to a previous question on a later question in the test. Also, note that your first answer is usually right, unless you didn't read the test question correctly the first time. Finally, avoid changing your answer multiple times. Remember, go with your gut. Your first answer is usually correct. Slide 14 has some more general strategies. Question any answers containing absolute words like always and never. These options are usually incorrect because, as they say, there are no absolutes. Finally, check to make sure you have answered all the questions. Remember that mark for review tool? It's the last time I'm going to say it. Make sure you use it and review. Okay, slide 15 is about reading passages. This test requires you to read passages and then answer questions about what you read. Go ahead and turn the page on your notes. And I want you to copy this entire bullet. Read the questions first. By reading the questions first, you will know what you are looking for as you read. This keeps you focused. Sometimes there will be a passage about science and you're really into science, and so you get wrapped up in that article and you forget what the question was about. So that's why you want to read the questions first before you read the passage at all. Slide 16, we're looking at keywords in a reading test. There are keywords and phrases that you need to look out for. You will find these keywords or phrases in the question, and that will help you choose the correct answer. Now, in teacher lingo, we call this the question stem. So for example, in the question, there is a stem, and this stem is going to help you to get to, well, the root of what the question is really asking you. For example, how do paragraphs 17 through 19 help develop the author's claims about the impact of music? What I want you to do right now is you're going to do a think, pair, share. Here's your question to think about. What is the stem of that question in yellow? Think about it. Now here's your hint. There are 4 words in that question that are part of the stem. Think about it. Now, go ahead and tell your answer to your shoulder partner to see if they have the same 4 words that you did. And then I'll give you the answer. Go ahead and turn and talk. Okay, you think you got it? Here we go. The answer is develop the author's claims. The stem of this question is develop the author's claims. Let me explain. The part of the question about the paragraphs is just giving you specific direction about telling you where you should focus. The part about the music is the topic or the subject of that question. Therefore, the answer has to be about the author's claims, not just about what's in paragraph 17 or 19, or just about music. Okay, let's move on to slide 17, and we're going to begin discussing charts and graphs. You may recall in your math or history class a time where you had to take a test and your teacher had put a political cartoon, a map, a chart, or a graph on that test. You will see one of these on the reading or math exams. So here are some tips for interpreting graphs, charts, or tables. Number 1, carefully read the title of the graph, chart, or table. Number 2, understand what each part of that graph, chart, or table means. Number 3, read the title of each row and or the column on each table. And number 4 is on the next slide. Number 4 states, get a general understanding of what the graph, chart, or table's information relays before looking at the question. So, like we stated earlier, if you have a reading passage, you're going to read the questions before you read the passage. Same as if you see a chart or a graph, look at the question before looking at that chart or graph. Let's go on to slide 19 and discuss the writing test. Make sure you listen to the directions on the writing test. You want to read the prompt carefully. You want to understand the purpose before you are beginning to write. So, most likely, you will either write an expository or argument piece of writing. Once you read that prompt, you want to identify some parts. I call this rafting with my students. So, R stands for your role. Sometimes on the AZ Merit, they ask you to write, let's say, for example, as a concerned citizen. Sometimes you will just write as a student. Okay? So that's R. A is audience. Know your audience. And we'll talk about that more in a little bit. F is format. The format that you will be writing could be an essay or a letter or an editorial. There's multiple options that we've seen in the past. Finally, look at that topic you are to write about. What is the topic specifically asking you to do? Is it to argue the benefits? Argue the disadvantages? Make sure you annotate and raft this prompt. Attack it, as we say. Okay, we're moving on to the next slide, and we're going to continue talking about writing. This on your paper is slide 20. Organize your thoughts before you begin to write your rough draft. Create a graphic organizer, such as an outline, web, a chart, a map, a cluster. Use these to plan and organize your ideas. Also, leave time to revise your work. Use the essay writing guide provided for you. Make sure you have covered all the criteria that the prompt requires. On slide 21, it states that during the writing test, you will want to edit your writing carefully. Know your audience. Who will be reading and grading your AZ Merit essay? An English teacher. So make sure your writing is academically brilliant. I'm going to give you a second so you can turn the page on your notes. Okay. At the top of the last page of notes, it says, check spelling, punctuation, capitalization, and grammar mistakes that may interfere with the message that you're trying to convey. And as I always tell my students, make sure you 7 up your sentences. That means that each sentence you write for academic purposes has to be a minimum of 7 words. However, if you are specifically trying to write a short telegraphic sentence for style purposes, feel free to do so. Just keep in mind, the more words that you have, the clearer your message can come across. Okay, on slide 22, it says keep in mind you may use the dictionary and thesaurus tool as a reference during the writing portion of this test. The tool will not be available during the reading portion of the test. Now, we're going to talk about something that is very real. It's called testing anxiety. What I want you to do is to look back at the 2 sentences you wrote about your feelings about test taking. So I'm going to give you a couple of seconds. Go ahead and flip back to page 1 in your notes and read what you wrote again. Okay, you all should be done reading. Now, you're going to share this with a partner. Go ahead, you can do it. They probably have the same anxiety that you did. Turn to that shoulder partner and tell your feelings about taking a test. I'm going to actually put 1 minute on the timer so you can talk this out. Okay, 1 minute. Ready? Go. There's about 30 more seconds. If you're done talking about your feelings, why don't you share something that has worked for you in the past where you've been able to alleviate those feelings and feel less stressed and less nervous? Okay, that's the time. Teachers, if students are really engaged, feel free to pause the video now and to talk about this a little bit more with your kiddos. Okay. Test taking anxiety is very real. According to the Center of Disease Control, 1 out of 20 teenagers has some form of anxiety. That's just crazy. Those are just the students who are diagnosed. So know that you feel nervous, you're not alone. And we're going to give you some tips and tricks right now to help alleviate that. Go ahead and turn all the way to your last page of your notes again. And we're now on slide 24. Some in the moment helpful strategies to give your body and your brain a break. First, be sure to take your eyes off the screen periodically. There is a 20-20-20 rule. You work for 20 minutes, then you take your eyes off the screen for 20 seconds, and you look at something that's 20 feet away. Another tip is to breathe deep through your nose and out through your mouth 3 to 5 times. You are going to be amazed how relaxed you feel just from taking a deep cleansing breath. Now, if that doesn't work for you, or you need something in addition, try squeezing your hands really, really tight, and relax and shake those hands out. Do that several times. Here's another good brain break. I do this one all the time, so try to follow along. Okay, put your pencils down for a second. What you want to do is take your left hand, or your right, it doesn't matter right now. You're going to touch your index finger to your thumb, then take that away and put your middle finger to your thumb. Take that away, put your left ring finger to your thumb, take that away, your pinky finger to your thumb, take that away, then reverse it. Pinky, ring, middle, index. Now go super fast and touch each finger to your thumb. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Then do it with the other hand. That takes some concentration. So that's a really good way to give yourself a brain break. Okay, let's start to finish up with some more helpful tips and tricks on slide 25 with overcoming anxiety. Another good technique to overcome anxiety is to use relaxation and visualization methods. Remember, take deep, slow breaths in through your nose and out of your mouth. Also, you can make sure to stretch your legs out underneath your desk, and while you're doing that, roll your shoulders back several times. This will definitely help relieve some of that tension. You guys are doing great. We have one more slide, and then you're going to do an activity. Okay, next slide. A calming distraction. So you want to distract yourself by telling yourself some positive affirmation. This is a mantra. It's encouraging self-talk. So you might try saying something to yourself like, you've got this, you've got this, you've got this. Of course, you're going to say this silently in your head and slowly, but it's okay to take a couple of minutes and give yourself some positive, good vibes here. You want to use affirming self-talk. Relax. It's okay. Concentrate. Now, if you really need to, and it is okay with your testing proctor, go ahead, one person at a time, ask permission first, and go get a drink of water. Maybe even have a snack if that's allowed. But again, make sure that you ask for permission. Okay, I'm so proud of you guys for sitting through this. You are going to do great. Remember that you need to fill this out. Ask your teacher if they're going to collect it and give you some points for doing all this work today. And remember, you've got this. Here's an activity for some teachers, okay? Teachers, if you have extra time, we're going to do a rally robin with the kids. You want to review what you just learned, okay? So go ahead and look at your shoulder partner. Point to who you are going to be working with. And going back through your notes or even your brains without looking at your notes. Partner A, decide who partner A is and who partner B is. Okay, partner A, give one strategy that's a good test-taking technique for multiple choice. Okay, partner B, give a different strategy. Now it's partner A, then it's partner B. Go ahead and rally back and forth until you have identified all of the multiple choice strategies. And you can go ahead and use your notes as needed. All right, teachers, you can pause here if you want to continue doing a rally robin. If you have extra time, go ahead and you may review these notes with your students. You may also go ahead and go over some of the anxiety, the body and brain breaks, and actually have your students practice breathing, practice squeezing their hands, practice visualization. Maybe at the bottom of this worksheet, every student is going to write their own mantra, some positive self-talk. Okay, thank you so much for having me today. I appreciate all of you working so hard and putting your best effort in taking these tests. All right. Bye, everyone. Win the day.